right, we are in the club today. I'm your host, Chris Jaeger, joined with Adam Sochinsky. And today, we're going back to campus with Dale from the University of Iowa and Craig from the University of Texas. Welcome.
Welcome in, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I think it's always interesting anytime you look at the impact universities can have. And today, we have 4 people at one table that have some sort of connection to the University of Iowa.
Go Hawks.
A couple of alumni, current licensing director.
And longtime employee.
And former student athlete.
Wow, look at that.
If you call golf.
Everybody's a former student something.
Well, anytime you got generations, I think, under a brand together, I think it's always interesting to see what the impact of that university has in your career journey. So I'd love to start the conversation there. You know, what has the University of Iowa meant to your career journey?
Well, it's meant everything. Actually, it's a place where you start your career and you go to work, right?
Right.
And the work part burns out really quickly if it's not deeper than that. So it's building relationships. That's the big part of it. And they become meaningful relationships. And those relationships become friendships, and then you just start rolling on the generations after that.
I love that. And I think relationships are at the heart and soul of everything when you build out your career and you look at, regardless of industry, how you form your network and the people that you get to meet, and ultimately the impact it has and open doors it opens up. I love that, Dale. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I just, it's what I've found moving around, living in Florida, living in Texas now, growing up in Iowa, just how many commonalities there are, people that have a connection to Iowa in some way, shape, or form, right? Went to school there, are from the state. I think Paul and I were talking, I think we have 5 or 6 people on staff in Texas athletics that are from Iowa.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't go to the University of Iowa, but they're from Iowa. And some went to Northern Iowa, Iowa State, Iowa. And it's just, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, you kind of know that.
Yeah, it's really a Midwestern thing. I was right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But it's true. Relationships, people, we call it Iowa nice. It's like, not to pick on any other region of the country, but sometimes if you're from a more urban area where the pace is faster, they're like suspicious of why is this person talking to me and being nice? So I think it is a Midwestern thing.
I would agree with that. We had a new business join our complex here, and they're out from the East Coast, and we brought them in. We shared our lounge space with them. And their first observation was it's refreshing to be in a space where people are wanting to just have a conversation. And it's not that everyone is, rude out east. There are people that are still nice, if you will.
There's jerks in Iowa too.
There are.
It's interesting because I think, a lot of times, and I'll do this kind of self-deprecating, right? I'll say, well, I didn't go to the University of Texas. Remember, you got to go slow. I have an Iowa degree, right? I couldn't get into Texas. But I say that, and oftentimes after I say something like that, it kind of goes back to the question, right?
Yeah.
Which was, I really valued my time at Iowa. I valued really just growing up in the state, but just Iowa City, the college town feel, just what it was and is, and I think probably didn't appreciate it as much as I do now.
Right.
Just knowing how and the positive impact that all the people I interacted with. You mentioned that I was fortunate to be on the golf team there, and just those connections. They just never go away, and it's
well,
really
specific to Iowa, and this is one of the, we work in this industry together, but we're all wonderfully, uniquely different. Our campuses are.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There are others like us, but Iowa is a place where there are no professional teams.
Yeah.
So it is a rallying point for the state. There is Iowa State University.
It is the Hawkeye State.
It is the Hawkeye State, and you even look at our culture. Now I'm housed in athletics, but we don't. A defining characteristic of our culture is that people rarely leave. We've had, how many people have had 2 football coaches
Yeah, seriously.
since 1978,
Yeah.
right? And Hayden would talk about
From
how,
the same coaching tree, too.
from the same coaching tree. And Hayden would always reference somebody sitting on a combine listening to the game, right? And it's true. It's true. So that's a Midwestern thing, and it's specific to Iowa very much so.
Yeah, I was going to say the word that comes to mind is pride. I think, of course, there's a lot of proud alumni around the country for the school that they went to. But when you talk to someone about Iowa and Iowa City, there's a tremendous amount of pride in talking about their experience and the memories. And I mean, we took a half hour to do it this morning, just about the places that we loved.
Is that all it was?
Yeah. I think just tremendous amount of pride being a Hawkeye and having those years in Iowa City.
Yeah, I mean, the sense of school pride that I think you have with the Brandale, my wife always makes the comment, anytime we're traveling, we see someone with the Tiger Hawk, and sure and behold, every time someone yells, "Go Hawks," and you yell it back.
Yeah.
Every airport I'm in, it happens on every business trip. It is something that brings the brand and the community together wherever you are.
Yeah, it certainly does. But you could say the same about a lot of schools.
Yes.
But I'd come back to the fact that it's a non-populous state without any other professional brands. We are the adopted brand of the state.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, just being at Texas for 27 years now, we have that, right? You've got the hook 'em horns, and it's that same kind of interaction, right? You see somebody and they kind of do the hand sign, and you hear about that a lot internationally, all over the state. But again, just what you made, the point you made, Dale, was you're talking 27 million people in the state of Texas. It's massive, right? And when you think about those, just the opposite dynamics of it. And one of the things I remember talking to one of our former ADs, DeLoss Dodds, and saying, and we had Mac Brown was our football coach at the time, and I tell the story to people because I think this gives you the clear definition. I'm like, Kurt Ferentz, he's recruiting phenomenally. He's got to convince these guys to come to Iowa City. They don't know what it is. They're from Florida. It's cold. All of those challenges, right? And I'll say, Austin, Texas. I don't go anywhere where someone meets me. They go, "Oh, where do you live?" And I say, "Oh, I live in Austin, Texas." Like, "Oh, Austin, Texas. Oh, it's so great. It's wonderful. Oh, yeah, it's awesome." I say, "Oh, have you been there?" "No, I've never been there. I just hear it's great." Right? So it's just that dynamic of just the draw of Austin, the population, the city, that just the vibe that it has out there. Where if you say that about Iowa City, and again, it's not a knock. It's just people don't go, "Oh yeah, Iowa City is great," unless you've been there.
Unless you've been there.
Right? Yes.
It's
right.
just I don't know. I just think to me, it's an interesting dynamic to your point of in college athletics. I'm in athletics as well, and just the institutions, how different they are, but they have that same connection to the alumni hey, go Hawks. I see people with Iowa stuff on them. I was like, what are they doing? I see them in the airport all the time. I'm thinking, oh man, where are you guys? Wait, you're wearing Iowa stuff? It's Miami.
Now, both of you gentlemen manage brands at major universities. You've been there for a few years, entering year 39, Dale.
I'm in year 39 right now.
All right, in year 39, and Craig, I think you said 27?
27,
Yeah. So when you look at that sort of stability within the environment of the brand, how has that really helped become an asset for you in terms of establishing your programs internally and externally? And what challenges has that brought where you've also been there for a while?
I think it helps create some consistency with what you're trying to build and do, and you can look back in probably 5-year increments and say how much licensing, products, process, the internet, the fan being able to get product where when we started 25 plus years ago, it was the bookstore, right? The bookstore was the place to get product. It still is, but there's now so many more avenues. There's so many more brands that are trying to tap into what that pride that we were talking about earlier. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think it's just that's the part that allows you to see it. And if you have that flexibility to, you've got to be flexible over that time period. I think if you stayed the same, if we were the same viewpoint that we had when we started, it probably would not be doing a very good job of what we're responsible.
I would say time and tenure, another benefit, because we're talking and we deal with you. You're a unique licensee with us because you work with the internal side of the university.
Yep. So
just on campus, which are mini cities, major cities in some states. So you build some historical knowledge,
right,
that you can rely on. Sometimes you look in the rearview mirror and you see where you've been, and it guides the path that you're on. So that's a huge asset to time and tenure. And likewise, and we were discussing earlier, just building that trust equity on campus also.
Yeah.
Craig was telling a story of, where people on his campus, I have the same thing, that you would think that their area of expertise wouldn't be coming to us to ask a question, but they do, because we fill in the color behind what they're doing in many respects. So I think that just the historical knowledge, it's cliche to say that where the skeletons are buried. And it's not, you do know where skeletons are buried, but probably a better thing is where the landmines are.
Yeah.
So you know how to traverse that field in front of you without stepping on one.
I think that's a wise observation, and that trust equity that you mentioned, it's such an asset when it comes to controlling the brand and helping implement process on your campus. We see it all the time where there's some schools have a revolving door in the seat, and it becomes an instance where the campus just kind of goes rogue then, and it's the wild, wild west. So I think that's a huge asset for you guys when you look at making sure that adoption is in place.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Craig, but I would say the biggest challenge with our job is on campus, because you've got people don't understand the big picture of what we do. It's easy to simplify licensing, to say logo cop.
Sure.
We say no.
The brand police.
And, while those are parts of the job, it's a small part. So that elevator talk to explain licensing requires the John Hancock building, on a slow elevator, because really they don't know what we do. So that's where the challenges lie. And again, time helps with that, because you built that trust.
Yeah, why can't I put this hat and mustache on the Tiger Hawk logo, right?
Yeah. The other kind of to your point, Dale, I think is you think about a college campus, you think about the creativity, you think about just the minds that are there, right, across all of the different colleges and schools. And that doesn't even include the student athletes or students in general. It includes, all the professors and the faculty, right, the staff. And it's managing them to understand that consistency is really key to why we are. And it's likely why you decided to come to this university and be a faculty member, because you knew what that brand is, what is going on in that campus.
Reputation.
That reputation, exactly. And so I think that's, sometimes you've got to just point that out to them. Like, wait, you came here, you were at, a lot of them will be at Ivy League schools, right? They're at a Yale, and they came to Texas, and you're thinking,
they got lost.
You went from Iowa. You went from Yale to Texas, so you came here from one prominent school to go to another one. So, you understood it, and that's what my whole. That's a big part of my responsibility, to make sure that we're upholding that. And
good branding is consistency builds trust. Yeah. So if you're changing things frequently, you're alienating people who don't recognize who you are.
Question. One of the things that we'll have, because you'll get new coaches, right?
Right.
And there's two parts to this. One, and I always take a lot of pride if we have a coach and they're doing their press conference and they're saying, the Texas brand is, really means a lot, and they talk about what that is and how they can recruit off of that and do all those things. And I look at that and I go, I got something to do with that, right? Because it's back to why I've been there so long, right? You've been there so long that you've been able to sustain that. Otherwise, I think you can hurt it. Dale, do you get that a lot with your coaches when you bring a new coach on? I know you had a new athletic director.
No, absolutely.
They go down that same path?
They go down that same path. And, I know you're a humble guy, and I try and be humble too, but it does feel good when you've been involved with it and you had something to do with it. Because while it may appear easy, there are those forces that are always trying to change what we're doing. There's a new flavor of the month.
Oh, yeah.
And the flavor of the month, tastes good in the moment. But so, yeah, I do see that, and I'm grateful for it. In fact, we just hired a new basketball coach, and as we all do, I think we call our colleague at the school if we know them or if we don't know them and say, what have we got coming here? And what I heard about our new basketball coach was like music to my ears, because he's cut out of the same mold as what we've had with coaches that really covet the brand. They recognize the value of the brand, and they want to coach. They don't want to become designers or build their own brand.
Oh, sure.
Build their own brand.
Yeah, we won't name any names of any competitors or.
I was going to mention too. I mean, Craig, you mentioned it. We get the same feeling, right, when we're walking a campus, or we see on social media or on ESPN. You see students wearing the stuff that we provided. We take a lot of pride in that, right? Where we're sharing pictures of it, or we get clients saying, "Hey, check out our event pictures." It's pretty cool to see some of that when you're walking a campus and you see the backpack that you branded or whatever the item was, but. I kind of share the same excitement and feeling when you see like, hey, I took part in that successful campaign or in the one student that walked past us. So it's pretty cool stuff.
As you should. And just so you know, we're looking at those same images and we're saying, oh, that's club colors. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. Love it, Dale.
Good. I'm relieved. But we also look at it and like, who's that?
Yeah.
I don't want to take you guys in a complete different direction, but thinking about all this branding, all this talk is, and I think what's really interesting about what's very similar about our two universities is we both have iconic animal logos, I'll call it that way to describe it, right? The tiger hawk and the Longhorn silhouette. That not every school has something like that, right? That's not their primary mark. The examples
simple
are
and not
it's
complex.
M's, it's T's, it's letters, right? And I think maybe I'm skewed because of being at Texas and going to the University of Iowa, but I think they're two of the more powerful brands in college because of that aspect.
Iconic,
right? 100%. But I do want to ask you, what is a tiger hawk? Right? I mean, I always used to, I was close to Hayden Fry, the coach.
I think a chicken hawk from
So that's a classic one because I don't think you can find a tiger hawk in any zoo. That's a Hayden Fry made up term.
They're not out there in the wild somewhere.
It's
a legendary bird.
Yeah, the farms of Iowa somewhere.
But you're absolutely correct with that we have very simple logos. They're one color. They were intended to be one color.
Yeah.
And they've been consistent over time. So there's that trust again. There's that recognizable.
There's that simplicity in design, though, that remains timeless. And it makes it something that when you talk about merchandising and ways that you bring it to the marketplace, it allows for that ease of application and consistent branding.
Yes.
It goes to almost, it's almost so simple in terms of the mark that you can find that it's dilutive because they want to use it as more as a decorative element than an actual mark.
Right.
So you kind of have to view it in that sense, and you have to sort of preclude some creativity while you can appreciate it, right? Especially with really creative folks like you guys have on your team. You know, you kind of look at it and go, I don't really want to stifle your creativity, but I've got to maintain that, and I always call it value of the mark, right? It's not it's not a dollar value, but it's a value of it. It's the pride. You know, the worst thing that can happen to me is a fan post something on social media that says, I can't believe they did this with our mark. This is the worst thing in the world to have happen to it, right?
You talk about Oklahoma.
They do plenty. But I think it's you said that with a solid color, right? We very rarely, and I would say the same thing with the Iowa mark is that you don't see it filled in with stripes or a leopard print, when that's popular.
Yeah.
You just kind of see it and go, no. You might do a stars and stripes just for a specific purpose, Veterans Day or 4th of July or something like that. But you just kind of keep it in that solid color. And it doesn't always have to be school color, but it's always a solid color to maintain the kind of the integrity of that particular
Craig, how
mark.
old is the Longhorn logo? I can't remember.
I think it goes. I want to say
They used to do numerals on the helmet at one point, didn't they?
Yeah, it goes back to at least to the 50s.
Wow,
at least that far back.
that's awesome.
The Longhorn was adopted back in 1916, so that's what students brought a Longhorn to the Texas A&M game.
Yeah,
And that's how it kind of
that's
came
great.
about.
It's
And
still
then they
relevant
adopted
today.
that. Yeah, it's
It'll
it's
be
hard
relevant.
to police. It's a hard policing scenario when you've got Longhorn cattlemen all over the state, all over the country.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
it's a little more, can be challenging, but we've used it for so long that it's pretty iconic.
Yeah, what are some of the challenges that arise when you have these iconic logos that are directly associated with athletics, and then you also have your internal side of campus that wants to maybe use it and they can't or they shouldn't? What challenges arise there from managing that?
Well, I think just in respect to our program, and then over time, see, there's familiarity with who you are. And I would suspect this is true with you being in athletics, and I'm in athletics. So when you're amongst colleagues, then our barriers are supposed to be lower, right?
Right.
So that's a challenge because you have to manage it consistently. Like I said before, you know what the consequences are if you get off of that, and they will always come back and bite you in the rear. So I think that, while it's a benefit to be amongst peers, and that can extend outside your department, it's also a challenge because, we're friends,
Right. Right. It's
Why
the relationship.
Why can't we do this?
Yeah.
So, and then you're back to having to explain.
Then you're back to the brand police.
You're back to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, there's such a passion for our fans and our alumni,
Right.
and then you get back to the internal
Yeah.
departments, right, within our campus who want to use that mark, and the best description that I can give to them and the explanation is that if we let everybody use it, it won't have its value.
Right.
So if the engineering school and the business school and the journalism school and all the nursing school and the medical school, if everybody starts using it prominently, and that's our iconic mark that becomes sort of the academic and athletic mark of the university, does it still have the same value?
Yeah. Yeah.
I try to help them understand that we have an academic mark. We have a shield in Texas. So, we try to explain to them the thinking behind it. They don't agree often,
Right.
but it's ultimately becomes your responsibility.
Yeah.
You kind of take that responsibility and say, if I let that creep out more and more, I just don't know that the value is there.
Yeah, I think another challenge, and this is unique because this is why it's great to have an awesome relationship with a company and a licensee like you, is we do live in universities can have a real giveaway culture.
Oh, sure. We're familiar.
And yes, I mean, and it's important to your business because it's part of your. But being strategic with what you give away, is really important because the moment you give something away, it diminishes the perceived value. We're trying to make money too in the marketplace. And, a great metaphor for that argument, I think, is bobbleheads.
Sure.
Because bobbleheads, now we do sell bobbleheads, but not before they became synonymous with giveaway at athletic events. Mm-hmm. And so those items that are part of that giveaway culture should, the way I try and manage it and advise is whatever that hot item is now, that it's rare that we get a hot item that you can make sales off of. When you get that, let there be some sunset before you start giving it away. And you don't have to, if all the seats are filled,
sure,
you don't have to give away 500 or 1,000 to the first 500 or 1,000 to get there. Maybe you incentivize that the other way. And I think, while certainly none of us relish the challenges that are college athletics now and the financial cliff that's out there with, and I know we're going to talk about NIL and some of that stuff a little bit, of which we really don't know anything, right? Because nobody knows anything. But some of these things are going to be, some of the money's got to come from someplace, and you can't cut all the expenses, nor can you make up the difference. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting dynamic to navigate on any campus, and everyone handles it slightly differently. So it's just interesting to hear from major brands like yourselves how you manage those conversations and ultimately educate your campus partners as to what that process looks like.
Yeah, I think one other thing, just to kind of close the loop on this topic, maybe is this a challenge. I don't know if I got dropped on my head or not. This is not something I struggle with. I can still hear my father's voice in my head about going to work and putting in the effort every day. Yeah. But you have to be self-motivated to try and look for new opportunities, to retain an open mind as things change. We were teasing you earlier about the Puff Ink.
Oh, yeah.
It's back. So there's nothing, and I know we got young Paul over in the corner. They're not paying attention, but I used to tell my interns this all the time, that there is nothing truly original, right?
It's all cyclical.
It's all cyclical. So you may think that you're the coolest cat on campus wearing what you're wearing, but when you get old enough, you've seen it several times before.
I mean, Adam and I, we experienced this with our younger sales floor. It isn't all that much younger, but the rise of Champion.
Sometimes it feels like
the return of Champion, if you will.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like when we were in high school, it was like, I'm not wearing Champion.
Yeah.
Now it's cool.
And now it's cool.
It was cool before you stopped wearing it, too.
It was cool when we were kids. Then we got to high school. It wasn't cool, and now it's back to being cool.
Yeah.
It's funny to hear how that all comes about, though, and the trends that come and go. But I think, you hinted at something earlier there, Dale, where you talked about NIL. And I think that's a big elephant in the room for a lot of athletics programs, a lot of schools, and the impact that it has. It's all evolved pretty quickly and completely changed the landscape of branding, and ultimately from a licensing perspective, how that's now an additional hat you have to wear. So I'd love to hear from you guys, like what that looks like from the campus side and how you manage those relationships, if you will.
I'll go first on this one since I tripped that topic a little bit. But in 2021 when it happened,
and
I think most of it's been unreasonable for a long time. It didn't make logical sense why. And again, I've been around long enough that there was a time where student athletes, and Craig, when you were playing golf even, you could probably take a summer job and do things.
Yeah.
But there's not an athlete on campus at this level that it's not a 24/7, 12-month job.
Right.
So for them to just experience life is challenging outside their sport. So I think everybody felt that it made sense that young athletes on campus should not be prohibited from just making money if they wanted to.
Sure.
In 2021, when it came out, I had a sort of an oh crap moment where I thought, this is going to be really tough. And the more I thought about it, and over the first couple months, I'm like, this really isn't any different than any other co-branded scenario. That's how I got my head around it. And I said, if I'm going to play in a bowl game, there's going to be at least 3 intellectual properties on that product. We have to agree on the vendor. We have to agree on the artwork. And we speak to our own mark. And then you agree on what the royalty is going to be and what the split is. So if we're playing our rival Iowa State, and it's an Iowa State, how's that any different than a student athlete? And that's basically how we've managed it. And since we're an independent program, we might have some little nuances that are different. But if we have a student athlete that has an opportunity, and we agree, and our position is that we want them to make money, I just hold them to using a licensee if it's going to be a product. So don't drop a dead bird on my doorstop and expect me to be excited to see it, right? So if they want to do, and I think we've seen the merch thing is kind of really, the opportunities are not. I mean, Craig, I'll ask you, how many initials with number logos did we see?
Oh, yeah. I think
every one of them had a buddy who could do something on the
sure.
computer, and it was their first and last initial woven into a number.
Yeah.
And somehow they were going to build a brand off of that. And I was like, no.
I don't think they understood what brand. It was talk about brand as a student athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think their idea of what a brand was, they looked at the Air Jordan brand,
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
right? And they were using that as their idea of what brand was.
Yeah, it's their North
I
Star.
think, but I think that, but again, I mean, they're looking at a premium brand that was
The brand.
built, right? I mean, it's not even comparable.
Right.
Talk about
However,
iconic
that's-
logos.
Yeah.
However, that's what they were looking at.
Sure,
right?
sure.
So you're trying to explain to them that there's a depth to what your brand is. It's who you are in social media. Are you posting pictures of you being out at a bar at 2:00 or 2:00 in the morning? Or are you what are you posting, right? What are those things? It was trying to get them to understand brand wasn't just creating a mark. It was about who you are as a person. And
Right.
I think some of these kids have started to realize it, and I think they got away from that. I don't see that nearly as much.
No.
I think they understand.
Well, there was no
that
money
is-
there.
and there's and nobody knows what it
You're
is,
done
right?
telling mom and dad and brother and sister you had to,
Right.
conk them over the head to get them to buy your
It
T-shirt.
became more of it really has become more name and number
Right.
T-shirt, maybe a few with
In
a
the merch
picture
realm,
on it.
yeah.
Maybe there's a like the softball player, pitching or throwing or something like that. It's more of that kind of more of that. But I think I want to go back to something you made me think of. I think very much as we were talking about it internally with our NCAA compliance team and trying to understand how we were going to navigate this, it very much became wait a minute, this is just another co-brand.
Yep.
And it took me a lot longer than it did Dale to get to the point of realizing, wait, we've been doing this.
Yeah.
This is just something that's a little closer to home because these kids are on our campus. Our coaches are saying, hey, we gotta keep up with everybody else, that what they're doing with their kids.
Yeah.
And how they're promoting them and how they're putting deals together and those kinds of things. And in some sense, we were precluded initially from doing that. And I think when I was able to get to that mentality of, wait, this is just another co-branded deal. Just look at what they're doing. Look at who it is. What are my requirements? And I give a lot of credit to my compliance guy. I mean, he helped me get there. He's just like, let's just stick to what we know, because We don't want to look like we're doing anything special with their deal,
Right.
because that could be a different inducement. And then obviously the rules kept changing, and trying to follow those. So I think it was really an interesting. It still is still challenging with all the settlements and where we're going to end up. I'm optimistic in that if athletic departments can be more involved, I think we can make better decisions or help these kids make better decisions.
I think
initially they made some really bad ones.
That's
I mean,
an important
exclusivity and things
component
like that.
too. You know, it's again being housed in athletics. It's you know, you have parents and families who are entrusting their kids.
Right.
So there's teaching and mentorship opportunities there to avoid some of that. But it's a worthy burden on staff. There's new opportunities like financial management, you know, and awareness. You know, I don't think we've seen this yet, but I remember in the early days, again, you know, how do you discern with a young person, you know, 18 to 20 years of old, 18 to 21, whatever. There's a lot of life to live yet, and there's bad decisions that are made during those years. And so we see it in culture all the time with celebrities and professional athletes where they do something that takes away their ability to earn by making bad decisions. I think you just build in a multiplier the younger you are because you just haven't had enough life experience to see those. But, you know, knock on wood, we haven't really seen it. I can't think of, I'm sure there are cases out there across the country, but getting that message across and helping them through that time of their lives is important as well.
I think that one thing that's come out of it that I don't know that I would have anticipated is you've actually had licensing companies focus solely on NIL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And say, you know, where I would have thought maybe a company like Club Colors would have said, you guys would have said, oh, we're gonna go into NIL because we can do quick prints, we can do short runs, we can just bring in product, we can turn it really quickly. I initially thought that's what some of our licensees that we had would do. And what you found is that wasn't the case. Everybody kind of stuck to their core, and these new companies came in and said, we're going to focus on NIL. And I kind of grasped onto that because I thought it's better to focus on it because you've got to have a lot of back-end systems that are unique because now you got to pay the student athlete. Right, you got to track
a lot that goes into making it all
There's a royalty. There's a student athlete piece. You got to track it. You've got to figure out the artwork. You reference that piece of it. There's a lot more to manage, right? And we're already. You say that's about licensing, right? Working with schools and individual schools. You guys, you know, I'm sure you guys can appreciate this. It's, you know, even though we very much think alike, Dale and I do, in terms of how we manage our programs. We're still a pain in the rear end, right? We're still a pain, right? He's got his nuances. I've got mine. You guys got to figure out, wait, what? Iowa doesn't like that. Oh, Texas.
Is it a T-shirt? Is it a hard good? Is it a athletics mark? Okay, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Is it headwear, apparel? Or
you should see the spreadsheet we have. Our licensing spreadsheet. Shout out Lisa.
Yes.
It's got a lot of details in there.
Yeah, it's
make your head spin.
It's not the easiest business, and we just added another element to it in terms of the student athletes.
Yeah, that's the position we took, right? We just kind of said we didn't know enough. Like you said, it was changing a lot, and we just said, we're going to stick to our core business and do our thing here. We had a couple schools come to us, and I'm not saying that we won't entertain it in the future, but for the most part, we've just been sticking to our core business and working with those departments internally.
Well, there's also a finite space out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we had a lot of people jumped into it. A lot of people fell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we know individuals who made career changes to grasp that brass ring that, blew up on them 6 months later. And now I think we've kind of reached a nice equilibrium in the marketplace. There's companies that are doing it very well. Still get some proposals from some that just thought it, NIL. And you can tell, this is one of those spaces where you can tell really quickly that they haven't thought very deeply.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of during COVID, right? You had a lot of companies in our industry that switched to selling PPE and masks and all these crazy things. We're like, you didn't really know anything about, right? We kind of stuck by our core business and try to figure out different ways that we can interact with our college campuses and with our corporate partners by doing some of that. So it's funny. It kind of reminded me of that, where people were just kind of switching their business model overnight. It's like, well, that's going to be pretty tough to then come back to when things go back to normal. So
yeah. Now, do you guys see a challenge with, when you have a student athlete that maybe starts to gain a national following, wanting to go outside of that ring of licensed suppliers and bring in new brands or new ways that they can explore things?